There's something that I've been implementing more in my life recently, and I think it's helped me a lot. You see, if you're someone who overthinks, who thinks a lot, who likes to be in the mental world preparing for how things are going to be, you're always 10 steps ahead. I want you to try just acting, just doing without thinking. Just be spontaneous for a little bit. All right? Just do something without thinking about what's going to happen. And I know that sounds crazy. Maybe that sounds stupid. But it's like, if you're constantly living in your head, you're never here in the physical world. You're never here living presently. You're in, the abstraction of thought, which is not really reality. It's kind of like its own illusion. And so, it's funny, like, I think a lot of times smart people can get in their way, or intelligent people can get in their way just because they've trained their brain so much to be so good at calculating things. Always being 10 steps ahead is a great thing. But if you're always off in this distant theoretical world, you're never here and now, right? And so it's funny, like the people who don't think, the people who are not necessarily always in the brain, like, I don't want to say like lower IQ because that sounds weird, but I'm just saying like the people who are constantly caught up in mental thought. To other people, they might seem stupid, or they might seem like they don't think or they don't care, but in reality, they're the ones who are most in touch with the present moment. They're the ones who are most in touch with reality. And so it's funny, like, if you feel like you struggle, that I encourage you to start doing shit without thinking. Trust yourself enough to make the right decisions without needing to constantly overthink about it. All right, and this obviously, this applies to people who have that issue with overthinking. If you are someone who already, doesn't think enough, well then, obviously you know what to do. Take some time to consider. But what I'm saying is, like, oftentimes people get caught up in the idea of how things should be, or caught up in the idea of perfection. And I just want to say, like, yo, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be like that. I was listening to these kind of anecdotes about someone talking about Prince, the artist, and how they knew him, and how his workflow was literally, he would enter the studio and he would just work. He wouldn't think, he would just work. He even like specifically would fire certain engineers who would take too much time, who would question his line of thinking. He said, I want someone who is going to, do what I need to do immediately without questioning or asking me questions, because he knew his process. His process was go. His process wasn't stop and think about it. He was always living in that action. And obviously, like, when you're not caught up in thinking about how to do things or how things should be, you just do it. You automatically get those reps and you automatically get better. And it's funny how people like get caught up in the idea of wanting to improve or wanting to do things right and doing this, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, they're kind of sabotaging themselves because they're not putting in the work. They're not putting in that daily effort. They're not putting in the reps that they need to get what they need to do. I use basketball a lot in my analogies, right? If you go into the game, or even if you go into training, if you're just there to practice and you feel like you got to do everything perfect, like you got to get your shot form perfect on every single 3-pointer you shoot that day, you're inherently like setting yourself up for failure, because when you go into the game, not every shot is going to be like this perfect pass where you catch the ball on the laces, you get it right in your shooting pocket, you get your form perfectly unbalanced. Like, no, sometimes you take shots that, they're off balance. Sometimes they're contested. Sometimes you catch the ball wrong and you still have to shoot it. Sometimes, there's 1 second left on the clock and you just got to throw something up. Like, so when you just kind of go into something and practice it without needing for it to be perfect, you learn how to do things in a way, more than just learning how to do things in a way that is flexible. You just get shit done, right? And so it's like, I think we need to be less focused on things being perfect and rather just go with it. Go into the process, do it, and be there with it, and say, whatever happens, happens, At the end of the day, like when your validation is internal, when you're driven just by the act of creating, just by the act of doing, just by the act of living, and you're not focused on the outcome, you immediately enter that space that we all seem to believe is almost like this mythical state, right? The zone, the Zen space, the space where everything flows, the flow state, right? And so what I encourage you to do is act and see where it takes you. Trust yourself enough that if it's a bad decision, you wouldn't do it. And even if it is a quote unquote bad decision, it might be for your greatest good. You might learn from it. So what I'm saying to you is be okay with failure. Be okay with not succeeding. Like, it's funny how we perceive failure. Like, this is a part of the reason, like, why people like this. It's because of the school system, right? We are punished for doing bad. Wow. In reality, when we underperform, or if we don't meet the expectations or standards that we have for ourselves, that's just an opportunity for growth. You know, in the real world, in real life, failure is just a stepping stone. It's not the end all be all. It's not a punishment. No, it's an opportunity for us to reflect and to look and to have an opportunity to be better. And so, like, you know, if I was to ask myself, you know, how can I be better? It would be looking at through the ways that I haven't been good enough, right? And so, yeah, all this to say, go out there and do it. Go out there and try it. You know, you're worried about how you perform. Say, fuck it. Be okay with not being okay. Be okay with not being perfect. Be okay with failure. Because being okay with failure doesn't make you a loser. Being okay with failure means you're brave enough to do something and do what you love regardless of what happens. And that is the mindset of a winner. You know, it's funny, like we have this idea of what we think people who are winners are, right? Let's take Michael Jordan. You think this man's a winner, right? But think about how many times he's lost. How many basketball games? You can't have a perfect streak, a perfect record in basketball. Sure, he has it in the finals, but he's lost other times in the playoffs. So it's like we like to think of you know, these people as perfection. We think of these people as, you know, undefeatable, as you know, victory is you know, perfection. Victory is not perfection. Victory is built on the back of failure. So all this to say, stop thinking. Don't think, just do. All right, that should be your mantra for today. Don't think, just do. You know, if you hear a thought in your mind, remind yourself, don't think, just do. Boom. No more thoughts. Action. Doesn't matter. Because that resistance is resistance. Resistance creates resistance. That is to say, when you feel that resistance of, oh, I don't know if I should do it, even if we're talking about things that you want. If you feel the resistance towards something that you want to do, you feel that fear, you feel that pushback, like, you gotta push through it. You gotta break through that wall, because that wall is not even real. It's an illusion, right? People get caught up in afraid of doing something by boundaries that are not even real. You understand that? Like, let's say you find a person attractive and you want to go talk to them, right? Simple. That initial like fear is it's an illusion. It's an illusionary blockage, right? You just go for it. You just do it. You want to I don't know, dance in public. You want to go sing. You want to create art. You want to play sport. You know, being hesitant doesn't give you results. Taking action does. So be present, be here, and don't overthink shit. Have a wonderful day.